G'day guys, I hope that you're doing well. So all my videos lately are getting restricted, so please bear with me while I try my best to rectify this issue, because it affects a lot of things, especially YouTube not showing my videos to audiences and not letting me monetize anything, which this is my main source of income. So it gets very stressful. But that said, I will try and figure this out the best I can, and I'm sure we'll be back on track in no time. But something I've done or said has definitely annoyed someone somewhere. But I also received an invitation from the Rumble admin team to be hosted on their platform. So I'll also be on there, same name as here, Willie OAM. Legends, more on that in a second, but I need to thank the sponsor of today's video, Masterworks. Now, it's well known that there's been worldwide changes reaching far beyond Ukraine's borders and into our lives, because Russia further cut its oil output just days ago, and with now 75 million people facing losing power. Energy bills already took twice as much money out of your pocket last year and put roughly 1 in 6 people behind on their payments. But now a stunning survey has shown that half Americans making 6 figures are living essentially paycheck to paycheck. Even Goldman Sachs is honest about where they think the market is headed, and that's nowhere. It's why major institutions are pouring hundreds of millions into low correlation assets, like one that's available to more people now than ever, thanks to the revolutionary approach from our sponsor. They specialize in art investing, a particularly stable market in the current climate. In fact, last year, art market prices outpaced 94% of stocks in the S&P 500. Masterworks makes getting into art easy, allowing people to invest without the usual massive entry costs. And they've built a track record of 11 exits, with the last 3 handing back 10, 13 and 35% net returns, paying out over $35 million to date to their users. Masterworks has seen over 650,000 users try and gain access, but there is a wait list. But right now you can get VIP access to the latest offerings just checking the description below. Thank you, Masterworks, for sponsoring this video. Let's have a look at the maps. Now, as always, we have Ukraine in the middle, the capital of Kyiv, Romania, Poland, Belarus and Russia around here. Now, the red areas being where areas Russia has taken since 2022, and the purpley maroon since 2014. Where we're going to go first, and something we're going to talk about, as always, is Bakhmut. Now, it's being reported that Zelensky goes to Bakhmut, or near Bakhmut, and this is being reported everywhere. And to me, this seems wild when I read it. But where did he actually go? Now, I can tell you right now, due to the lack of body armor, that it is nowhere in Bakhmut, especially with the routes in and out being under constant shelling. Or it's probably not within effective artillery range either. If Zelensky gets hit or killed, it would be an absolutely huge blow for Ukraine in the international eye. Love him or hate him, he knows how to gain support on the world stage. Now, the Cube, who have always been very reliable for geolocation and often are verified by third parties, have geolocated that he was in this town here. And so let's have a look at that. So they have geolocated that he is this town at a gas station. And so if we go onto the map and put that where it is, this is in this town to the west of Bakhmut, pretty much on this main road, and we'll take as a reference point where this road goes on the right angle. So if we go then this same location as seen here into the ISW map, that is where we're looking. So let's have a look on the deep state and how, sort of have a look at what distances this is. So it's like about here somewhere to the closest point on the front, we're talking 14 kilometers, and to Bakhmut itself, as the crow flies, let's say 24 kilometers. So definitely not somewhere very safe, but it's definitely not, as I would call, on that sort of last line or within Bakhmut. And this is at the fuel station, but I would assume due to the photos not wearing body armor that the photos within the warehouse are in this location as well. But it's also said that the road through here, which is through Kromove to Bakhmut, which is one of the last connecting roads and really the last major road. There are some minor ones, but this is the last major one. As we know, this one is under fire, is still open. And we have had this video released upon that road that has been geolocated to here. So if we jump across to this geolocation, this is on this road. This is the road from Kromove to Bakhmut. And then, of course, we put it the same area onto the ISW map, and we can see how critical this road must be and how close this actually is to where the Russian line of control. But this road is said to be a death road as it is still under constant shelling. Has there been any movements on the map? So today is the 22nd of March, and over the past 24 hours, there has been no real territorial gains or losses in this. Yeah, there's a tiny movement of this grey zone, but nothing really to speak of. That could just be a map error. And this is the same all down the front line through Avdiivka as well. We're not seeing anything. Also in Mariinka, where these are places we know there has been absolutely fierce fighting over the past 24 hours being reported. But something as well is it's being reported that Ukraine is having some success on an offensive near Orikhiv. So Rybar Maps is reporting that they have entered this village here. You see on the map here away from the Russian front line, but definitely within the grey zone. So let's have a look on that on the ISW map as well and see what it's showing there. As we know, the front line can be very interesting as it sort of changes to and from with a lot of places. As you can see on the Russian map, it is showing that this village is right on the sort of grey zone, at least assessed Russian control, but this village sits just in here, as we'll see. So it's saying it's out of here, but it's saying that Ukraine is having more success pushing on an offensive from the south, which we did see a Ukrainian offensive from the south get compromised near Zaporizhzhia earlier last week. Also, over the past 48 hours, there's been reports of a soldier from New Zealand being killed in Vuhledar. The maps today aren't showing much territorial changes, so that'll be the end of our mapping for today. Now, yesterday I was super jet lagged, and I want to go over some stuff again that I spoke about, but I think I may have explained it poorly. So, the depleted uranium munitions. Now, we know these have been used everywhere, and they are highly, highly effective with the speed of these, pretty much just like a uranium dart coming out the end of the barrel, being somewhere in it's like Mark 5 or Mark 7, something just unbelievable, and will punch, through and through. But we do know the tests on the danger are probably bullshit. Militaries have lied time and time again about chemicals and hazards. Just look at, Vietnam or more recent problems in Iraq, Afghan with burn pits, things like this. We know that these hazards exist that are absolutely swept under the rug. If you want to look up a big one, look up the Australian F-111 reseal, deseal program, where they sent guys into the fuel tanks on these aircraft, told that it wasn't hazardous without the correct PPE, and all these guys ended up having cancer. And one report I did say is, although this is radioactive, it is really more dangerous to the crew getting hit as the particles can splinter. And I sort of read that and read it again and thought, if you're the crew getting hit by one of these darts going at multiple times the speed of sound, I think you've got bigger issues than maybe the long-term effect of radioactive materials. But again, we know that Ukraine is essentially a big food bowl with the amount of farming land there, and these are super effective, but will it have longer-term effect? We don't know. But, Russia is jumping up and down about this is a nuclear escalation, which I think is a long bow to draw, saying that's a nuclear escalation. As we know, Russia used depleted uranium rounds as well. Also, China really mating up with Russia and the effects of this. And I think that this is a big deal because a lot of this war has been, draining Russia's arms supplies, whether by purpose or not. It is benefiting America and Europe a lot because through a war that Ukraine is fighting and their soldiers going to, we can drain one of the largest militaries in the world of not only their troops, but of their lethal military power. But that said, this could be totally flipped on its head with China getting involved and supplying Russia with lethal aid. As we know already, our shells, our lethal aid is really struggling at the moment to keep up with the amount that Ukraine needs. Now, I don't have any doubts that we will be able to keep up with that amount, but absolutely, shells in the West, it is getting a bit barren as far as a lot of reports are coming out, and we're building new factories to just build shells. But we've also spoken before about China, giving maybe lethal aid, but there's no confirmation of that. But Russia need a lot of non-lethal aid as well. Lethal aid in a war is great, tanks, bullets, bombs, whatever. But especially in the beginning, Russia had and still has a lot of lethal aid. But what they really, really struggle with is combined arms, being able to use that stuff, in sync together, command and control, and actually just logistics of getting it there. Now, could China step into a non-lethal aid position, maybe provide intelligence, some combined arms training, some leadership, and that could totally flip things around? There's also a figure of $12 million in drones from Autel Robotics and DJI being sent into Russia from China, although I can't get any confirmation on whether that was like from the government or from, just like buying and selling in, as these are just, commercially available drones. But at the end of the day, $12 million in a war, $12 million to you, all right, yeah, I get it. It's massive. We're, going to the pub and buying bottles or something. But as far as in a war is really, really small, but it's still something. And if that was, from the government in, is it lethal? Is it non-lethal? Well, a drone would be, ISR capability, but now we've been able to see that it's pretty easy to put a drone into a lethal capability. So it's hard. What is actually a drone? What is a drone now in war? But I also believe that China is a huge threat to Russia. So if Putin was to fall and the Russian Federation looks like it was going to destabilize, I'd have high bets on China swooping in, maybe stabilizing the ground, taking some almost like a peacekeeping force, as the Russian ground solves a lot of China's issues with energy, the reliance on imported natural resources, and also a route and a border with Europe, not only for import and export, but sort of control in that region, as Russia's the biggest landmass in the world. That is purely just my speculation. But at the end of Xi's meetings in Russia over the past 3 days, this conversation was reported. Now, as he departed, he told Putin, "Now there are changes that haven't happened in 100 years. When we are together, we drive these changes." Putin said, "I agree," to which Xi responded, "Take care of yourself, dear friend, please." Now, the Associated Press have reported. The World Bank report released on Wednesday puts the cost of Ukraine's recovery and rebuilding from Russia's invasion at $411 billion over the next decade, with the cost of cleaning up the war rubble alone at $5 billion. Ukraine has a pre-war GDP of... Now, the World Bank says Russia's invasion has undone 15 years of economic progress in Ukraine, cutting Ukraine's gross domestic product by 29% and pushing 1.7 million Ukrainians into poverty. This GDP isn't just going to return quickly once war ends, and this rebuilding cost figure will continue up and up as war continues, with no end really in sight. And so many issues are going to plague Ukraine after this war with this rebuild, such as the loss of life and the significant loss of young male life and the huge exodus of women and children who have fled the country. With figures saying only a third of these refugees actually want to return to Ukraine from the EU. Also, there's been a huge impact on Ukraine's primary industry. This could all limit the GDP and limit the rebuild. And as always, there will be people to take advantage of these situations. And all of this can spiral into an economic collapse and take decades to recover. I'll be very interested to see what the EU and the US do about this financial aid after the war in rebuild, as these figures dwarf any of the military aid, and there will be a big topic, especially next year with the US elections, as Ukraine spending will be a huge topic of discussion, especially for the Republican Party. And at the end of the day, the US has the biggest military in the world and the biggest military industrial complex in the world and the biggest GDP in the world. They have so much influence over things like this. But that's the end for me today, guys. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm still here in the States and I'm hoping to get out to you guys daily. So look after yourself, have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.